Well, that compressor's leaking oil and making a mess. Guess I should do something about it.
Go ahead. Take the opportunity to get that big, expensive compressor you've been lusting after. You know, the one that puts out 30 SCFM.
Or you could tear apart Old Faithful, see what's wrong and repair it. Save a little money and resurrect a trusted workhorse.
Okay, let's give it a try. So my compressor is a Husky TA2530B. I bought it at Home Depot maybe in 2012. I noticed it started leaking some oil underneath the motor right there, so I just thought I'd take it apart and see what was going on. This is the fill cap. These things get really buggered up badly. First thing to do is drain the oil out, which I hadn't done in quite a while. As you can tell by the state of that oil, there's a lot of particles in there. Tip the thing sideways to get it all out. Oil change done. Now taking the tubing off the check valve and this pressure relief valve that's up on the head. The little fan that's on the back of the motor. And remove the retaining ring. This thing was on here, I don't know, strangely tight, so a few taps, get that off. Of course, using the appropriate tool for the job. Remove the handle just to make things a little bit easier. This is the line that goes over to the shutoff valve. Not exactly sure what this is called. If it's got an appropriate name and someone knows what it is, let me know down in the comments. I actually ended up not needing to remove that, but oh well. This is the cover for the oil reservoir. Again, remember to drain the oil before you take this off. That black membrane there is some kind of a baffle inside. I'm not sure exactly what it does, if it helps to keep the oil from splashing around or what. Again, if you happen to know, let me know in the comments. A lot of particulate in that oil, so this is worth cleaning up well. Now I'm removing the head so I can take out the piston. That just slides off of that eccentric wheel. Now this was an interesting thing. I worked to try to get this off until I finally realized, maybe that's a left-hand thread. And there you go. Probably should have known that, but you live and learn, right? Now this was the hardest part of the whole thing, was getting this eccentric wheel off. I had this small gear puller and thought I would try it. By the way, I threaded that bolt back in so I could use that to push against with the puller. I must have worked on that for about 2 hours and got nowhere, so I decided I'll move on and take the motor off the back and see what that looks like back there. And I could give that eccentric wheel a little bit more thought. A few taps to remove the back of the motor. I also removed the capacitor because it was keeping me from taking that off. A safety alert, make sure to discharge that capacitor appropriately so that you don't get any nasty surprises. With that done, you can just slide the stator off. Off it comes, and there's the rotor. Note that little spring for later. The bearing actually looked really good, but I did notice there was a lot of grease and stuff sitting on the rotor. You can see there at the bearing how it's oozing out and how the oil was coming through and dripping down. Alright, so I decided to add a little heat to this to see if I could get it to expand slightly. This was probably a fool's errand. I don't know that it really did anything, but I thought it was worth a try. I just couldn't get any purchase with that small puller. So next I tried the brute force method. Not too proud of this, but thought I'd give it a shot. I was hoping maybe I could just knock that out through the back by using that bolt that was in there, but that didn't work. Then I remembered, I have a larger puller. So I really worked on this a long time, adjusting these arms around to try to get it in the right spot. What I finally wound up doing is I had to grind down the ears of that puller to get it to fit around the back appropriately. Again, I must have worked on this for, I don't know, a day. I finally got it mounted in there. The unfortunate thing is, I didn't have the video running when it actually came out, so no money shot. Finally, after 2 days of work, the rotor's out. And there is the offending seal. So I got the number off of the back of that, and I ordered another one up off of McMaster Car. I love McMaster Car. By the way, those bearings were in great shape, so I wasn't worried about that. I'll leave a link to that part number that I ordered on McMaster Car. I'll also put a link to any of the tools that I was using on here, if that's helpful for you. So just cleaning things up here, a little brake cleaner. Wanted to get that inside of that oil reservoir cleaned out nicely, and just thought I'd shine up the outside a little bit since I have it out here on the bench, and we'll probably never ever do it again. So here I'm fitting the seal back on. I think this was about $5 or $6. Just putting a little lube on here just to get things to slide in a little nicer. Line it up. Tap it home. Now again, I thought I'd make this a little bit easier on myself, maybe by heating this up. I did also have the rotor in the freezer for about a day to try to shrink it a little bit. Didn't really make it much easier to get this on. This was kind of a beast. This is one tight interference fit on this thing. So again, a little bit of the brute force method, but finally got it in. I also wound up getting a new left-handed bolt to put in here because using that with the puller really kind of botched it up pretty badly. I put the whole thing back on. These bolts here are amazingly difficult to get on and off because of where they're situated. You can't really get a wrench on them very easily. Put the motor back together. Now, remember when I mentioned that spring back a little while ago? Well, this is where it comes into play. As I had it all on and oops. So off comes the back, insert the spring, and put it back on. You have to take a little bit of care when you're putting these long bolts in to make sure things are lined up and make sure that the rotor isn't rubbing on the stator. Something I noticed was kind of interesting is after putting that new seal in, it did turn with a bit more resistance than it had before. And a quick test. Keep your fingers clear. Everything looks good. So we'll put the pieces back together. If you're finding this video helpful or interesting in any way, I'd appreciate it if you strike a like and let me know down in the comments. Placing some cable ties, keep everything tidy. I also wanted to make sure none of these wires were rubbing on the rotor, so I zip tied those up. Now this was an interesting little problem. This rubber baffle, when I went to put it back in the cover, it had shrunk, it wouldn't fit. So I tried heating it, I tried stretching it, I tried doing all the things that I could think of. Finally what I ended up doing was kind of fitting it piece by piece and using a piece of plywood, sliding it up, and keep the parts that I'd already seated in place, and then moved it up and up and up until I finally got the whole thing seated. Then I clamped it off and basically just left it for a day. Now I did find a replacement for it, which I'll leave a link to below in the description. Unfortunately, I needed to use the compressor, and the part wasn't going to get to me for about a week. I had a really hard time finding parts for this old compressor, so I made do with what I had. By the way, those head bolts, I wound up torquing those to about 100 inch-pounds. Just finishing up the installation here. Not too tight, not too loose, but just right. Put the fan back on. Reinstall the retaining ring. I'll end up putting a little bit of Loctite on this bolt. Probably a bit of overkill with the clip ring and everything, but whatever. That thing's not coming off, probably ever. Make sure that nothing gets caught in the fan when it's running. And now time to fill it up with some oil. Full synthetic. Got this stuff at Home Depot. Look down to the bottom there at that sight glass. I guess this thing is supposed to be filled until the oil is halfway between that red dot. Which, it's a little more than that. Put on that horrible cap. Fire it up. And it's building pressure. Reinstall the protective sheath on the back. By the way, I did check, and it was not leaking oil out from under the motor, and I have checked since, and it is still not leaking. Replace the arm, and there it is. Let's go and make use. Bring it up to 32 pounds, and voila. Good to go. I guess that went pretty well. Save some cash and the old compressor is back to 100. Maybe this will be something that'll help someone out. Maybe they'll strike a light. That'd be cool.
You're still stuck with a measly 5 SCFM, and that's on a good day.
Yeah, I guess. But at least now I'm not forced into buying, and I learned a few things along the way.
Huh.
You made the right decision for the time being. Now what is that you always say?
Oh, you mean, until next time, I'm mainejason. Get out there and give it a try.